Yeah, we got to give people a chance. You got to give yourself a chance, right? And that's the whole point.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can think ourselves into knots, or we can think ourselves out of them. Okay, and we have the ability to do both, and we got to remember that. We got to give
Yeah.
ourselves that credit.
That's true. And then metaphors can make things a little bit they don't always completely apply. Sometimes they're easy, but sometimes they're another example of a critic or a thought terminating cliche, you know. You get a metaphor that looks really good and it just really doesn't apply to the situation you're imposing it on, but the metaphor seems good.
That's one of the reasons I really think how I use language in these conversations is so important. It's actually the genesis of my using the word racialized. Like I didn't used to talk like that before, but I just realized after kind of doing some greater introspection through these conversations that, well, I didn't take on a black identity. You know, I don't really identify as a black person. Like, you know, what I know is that blackness was put on me. You know, it was put on me at birth. It was written on my birth certificate. You know, I didn't as a baby like declare that I was black. Like it was something that was put on me, and so you know, I decided to change my language to make sure that I'm saying it that way,
How are
racialized
you
as black.
how are you using the term though? Because I mean there's an Afro-Peruvian culture, and so there's and then there's the cultures in Europe. I mean, it's different, right? I mean,
Well, Afro Peruvian, where's the race in that?
well, you have I'm just talking about the black communities in all other parts of the world are not necessarily the same as the American black community, right?
Of
So are
course,
you
yeah.
when you're talking about taking on an identity, you're having something imposed on you, like an expectation of what a white person sees as a black person. Is that what you're kind of saying?
I mean, partially that's part of it, right? But like what I'm saying, I'm talking about blackness. I'm not talking about my Afrocentric roots. You know, like I was having lunch with my dad today, you know, talking about our family roots from Nigeria, right? So, you know, he calls himself
Yeah.
African American, you know, because that is accurate. But calling ourselves black is not something that is part of our identity. It's just not. It's something that was only
Oh,
created
okay.
to impose stereotypes of us. So, like you were saying, like an image of what black should
Yeah.
be, you know?
That's one of those cases where it's easy to, and I started getting a little, because it's easy to just kind of stumble in. You're trying to find the parameters of what the respectful way to talk about these issues is, and then you kind of get sucked into saying something that's a little bit insensitive,
No,
just
you were
because, and then
fine,
you're
brother.
okay,
You were totally fine. You weren't insensitive, okay? You have to I mean, it has to be okay to ask questions. It has to
okay.
be okay to question things. Like, I mean, how do we get anywhere otherwise, you
Well, I
know?
was trying to figure out the terms, the definitions of the terms that you're using, and then the origins of those words. And but it's one of those things as I think about it, it's like yeah, it's one of it just makes me some of those things make me nervous. Sometimes when it's like is if I'm writing something, there'll be places where it's like, whoop, go let's write about something a little bit, you know,
Well, if you want me to be your
less
race
dangerous.
checker, I'll do it. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's 100%. That's the job. I need it all the time where it's sort of like, because you just stumble into things at times and you have no idea that you're getting on something that's problematic. So
Yeah.
that's how we find out, you know, that becomes a whole nother thread you can uncover. It exposes, like, for example, the other day, I was talking with a friend of mine, and in the publication I edit for, we, uh, just the standard of the publication is to capitalize the word, like black. When you're saying like the black community, you always capitalize black. And this writer I was writing for, he was like, well, how, would you capitalize white? And it's like, no. So then we were just kind of having a discussion about that. And at first he was like, and I was just like, look, this is just the standard of the publication. I do, that's what they said, and I'm respecting that that's what they want to do. And as an editor, I'm going to do that. But then he kind of went into where he convinced himself, or he looked in, he found an article, I think it was published. I forget where it was from, but it went into how just the cultural significance of the word black is different. The word white doesn't have that. So that's why you capitalize black, but you don't capitalize white. And he was just in the course of this nice, it was just a nice little conversation we had where he's like, oh, he's like, this makes me see things in a new way. And it's like, okay, that's a great little example. But
That's
then
a
it's like, but it's also like, if somebody at the publication tells me we're no longer going to do that, okay. And then if I don't understand it, that's fine. I'm going to abide by what they say. And then I'll try to figure out what it is later. And hopefully somebody will have compassion and explain it to me. but it's not really, it's like I also kind of just like, these are the words you want to use, and the words you want me to use when I'm talking to you, then that's what I'll aspire to do. And any mistakes I make are honest mistakes that are not designed, it's no intent. And again, though, we live in this society where commonly people are intentionally needling groups all the time. Like the mispronunciation of Kamala Harris's name, constant. So so that's why I'm a little bit sensitive to that. Cause if I make just an inadvertent slip or a mistake, you know, it just gets you lumped in with those groups that do it deliberately. It's kind of just another thing that's kind of out there, and it's on my mind a lot.
Listen, if you get lumped into that group because you make a mistake, what you need to hold on to is the fact that you are not representing those values, and don't let that destroy the inner world that you have for yourself. Instead, what you should allow is yourself to express your true values. Okay, if someone tries to put that on you, you need to feel calm inside because it's not your values, brother. Like, what do you have to fear if someone sees you that way when you're not that way? I
That's
think maybe
true.
the fear comes from the fact that you're afraid of the things that still linger,
Ah,
those pieces that you haven't dealt with yet.
well, that's true. And then a lot of that stuff too is even stuff that I've kind of handled can come up again. It bubbles up again. And that's that sitting down with the clanner, because I can insult them. I know it's not going to do any good though, and it's like I have to remember that. But it's like there's tactic. It'll feel good in the moment. In the end, I'll pay for it, my own sense of self. But it's just kind of there. And maybe that's what I was talking about before. With that kind of just that white anxiety that I see. It's just like,
So that's what I'm saying, Walter.
yeah,
When you deal with it fully, it won't be there.
yeah,
It is a
we'll see.
clear sign that you still have some work to do, brother. That you
Oh, absolutely. I have no problem admitting that there's work to do and there's things to sort out.
Thanks for watching. For access to the full length conversation and all of the 2 hour long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.